One of the big arguments we always get, the grid can't support EVs, different things. And one of the problems, we know that over 20 years, the grid will be able to support EVs. They're not coming online as fast as people would like or hope or whatever. But, the harsh reality is the EV transition is going to take decades for it to be complete. One of the things is when we look at renewable energy or solar energy, obviously needs the sun. So that energy needs to be stored. And that solar energy is strongest during the day when it isn't peak usage. What are our peak times? 5 to 7, 5 to 9 p.m.?
Yeah, little before that, 3 to 7, 4 to 7, but yeah,
Okay.
it's people coming home from work and it's hot out.
Well, and I don't know about how it is here for wind power, but I know in places like California, their wind power seems to peak at 1 a.m. for some reason. I don't know if if it's the same here in the Midwest or not.
Yeah, it's overnight. I mean, you'll see high penetrations of wind overnight.
Okay. So, and when that is going on, that's also when we're kind of off peak. So what the guys at the University of Delaware, and I find it interesting, they're using electric Mini Coopers because they don't really have very big batteries. The idea is that if you're hooked up on bidirectional chargers, the grid during peak times would pull power from your car and basically compensate you and then sell you back cheaper electricity when the grid doesn't need it. And in theory, you might be able to get a complete wash of your power cost of the car, but that way, because you don't really need to be powering your car most of the time between that 4 and 7 p.m. And then sometime after 11 o'clock at night, they would kick on and fill your battery back up.
Yep. And it's a use case for like utility scale battery storage, the arbitrage, especially places that have time of use pricing and different elements like that. Hey, there's a peak demand where power is scarce that drives up a higher cost for that. Let's discharge at that period and then recharge at night when the wind is blowing, demand is low, and all of these other things happening. So it's the sell high and then buy low when you go back in there. But we've looked at it from a utility perspective. It's kind of that double edge of electric vehicles. On one hand, the last time we want them to be plugged in and contributing to grid load is that peak period, 4 to 7, 3 to 7, whenever it is. But on the same hand, just through consumer habits, hey, I get home, I plug my EV in. If I have a storage source, to pump back in at that point, what an opportunity, that people are going to be plugged in anyway during that time period.
So the idea is that you basically are getting compensated for having your vehicle attached, and that also benefits the grid. But of course, they've got to get car manufacturers to all be making them bidirectional, and because the cars themselves have the inverter built in, or they have to have the inverter built in so that they can be bidirectional. And then you have to have, the bureaucracy go along and play ball, right? So this isn't something that's going to get rolled out next year, but we keep seeing more and more of this, of vehicles that have bidirectional charging, energy management systems. I had those guys Emporia Energy on a few months ago, and we were talking about they're coming out with a bidirectional charger this year, and they're big on supporting solar. They're kind of an ideal system. They have an energy management system that's ideal for somebody who has both solar and an EV, and to help manage selling their extra power back to the grid.
It's interesting. There's federal legislation that's been passed. It's called FERC Order 2222. Mm-hmm. And what it does, it allows for the aggregation of a lot of smaller facilities that aren't connected, aren't at the same place. Your neighbor, your neighbor's neighbor, hey, we all have solar. My little solar panel on my roof, not enough to sell back into the grid by itself. But if we all come together and pool our resources together, it's kind of like a virtual power plant. And the federal legislation that's passed, it says you have to allow people to do that. So now all of a sudden you can aggregate all of these electric vehicles and put it out into the power market as a sellable product. Whereas before, from a practical standpoint, whatever standpoint you want to look at, remember kind of the price of entry is you need about a megawatt. You need about a megawatt of generation to bid that into the market, to sell it into the market, do everything like that. So an electric vehicle at 7 kW on a level 2 charger, well, no, you're a factor of 100 short. But You get all of these together, now the law is on your side. The bureaucracy part says you have to allow people to do that and let them into the market at that point.
No, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Because as you mentioned before, we've had a power grid that's only ran one way for 100 years. And now it's being used in multiple directions. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But you could really have a lot of people with a lot of power in a neighborhood. If a third of the homes have a EV plugged in and they're supporting power. This is kind of funny too, because everybody's always talking about, well, if you had all those cars plugged in, then the power system's not going to be able to handle it. Well, we're going the other way.
Yeah. And what if it tips it the other way? It overloads with backflow.
The other way, that we're going to put so much power back to the grid if the grid needs it. I don't know enough about electricity to understand how they throttle that, but it is kind of interesting just to imagine how that is going. It'd be like you had your own well in the back and you were pumping your own water back to the city to add it into the city stores.
It is the topic of the day in the grid. What one of many, with everything changing, but yeah, it's exciting. It's neat. It's very neat from this perspective. Terrifying.
And this University of Delaware thing that they call the vehicle to grid capable EV a roaming inverter. And it's more complicated for utilities to certify an inverter to push power under the grid when it moves from place to place compared to one that's permanently connected to the same point on the grid. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, that's really interesting to see what kind of work is going on in that space.
Hi, I'm David with EV World News. If you like this video, then please press the like button. If you like the content and would like to see more videos on electric vehicles, then please hit the subscribe button. If you have some feedback for us, please let us know in the comments. Have a great day.